now, so. Okay, glad y'all are doing well. You guys still have a while before school starts, right? Don't have to worry about classes yet. Meanwhile, half my classes are like 10, 15-minute walks away from each other, which is annoying, but guess I'm getting in my exercise. Okay, let me share the presentation for today. So I hope you remember what we did last time. So true or false, Java arrays can only contain one type of object. Actually, you can type the answers in the chat. We could always just do like, you could just answer all three of them at once if you wanted to. Second one is Java arrays automatically resize when you add more and more elements. And the last one is I have an array of length 5. What is the first and last indices of this array? So yeah, you guys can go ahead and type your answers in the chat. You don't have to type all of them also. If you only know like the answer to one of them, you can just type that one. And if you have any questions or if you just forgot, that's totally cool too. You can also just type that. I won't hold anything against you if you legit just type I forgot. Okay, well, I'm gonna assume nobody remembers then if you haven't typed anything yet. So for the first one, Java arrays can only contain one type of object that is true. So when you define an array, right, you define it like with the type of object already in mind. However, like when we get into, we're gonna get into, in the future, if you get into more complicated things where you have like objects and then like you can have like subtypes of objects, right? As long as it's like the same type of, like if you have like a class animal and you have a class dog that is a subclass of animal and a class cat that is also a subclass of animal, if you make an animal array, you could have both dogs and cats in it. But they're still the same type of object, as in they're the same, they're both animals. So essentially, Java arrays can only contain the type of object that it's defined to have in the beginning. So second one, Java arrays automatically resize when you add more and more elements. This one is false. So if you remember last time we talked about arrays and then we also talked about array lists. So array lists are like a special kind of object that like Java includes. And array lists can resize themselves and you can modify the size of array lists really easily. But arrays are restricted to the amount of space you allocate to them when you create them. So if you had like an array of 10 and you had 10 elements in already, and you wanted to add another element to the end, you wouldn't be able to do that. You'd have to create an entirely new array that has 11 elements and then copy everything from the old array into the new array and then add another element to the end. And that's really annoying. So that's why we don't like using arrays usually, because they're difficult to resize. And then for the last one, if you have an array of length 5, the first and last indices of the array are going to be 0 and 4. So if you remember when we talk about like indexes, right, with both arrays and strings, the first element in the array is going to have an index 0. So you start counting from 0 and you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So then the last index is going to be 4. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay, cool. Moving on then. So today we're going to talk about code flow. And this is a very, very important subject that basically makes all of coding run. So, so far when we write code, our instructions flow from top to bottom, right? The system reads the code from top to bottom and then executes it like in that order. However, sometimes we may want to only execute parts of the code or to execute the same code over and over again. So this is where we start talking about code flow and controlling the flow of the code. So like, say you have 30 students in the class, and I want to give a blue ball to the students who are under 12 and a green ball to students if they are 12 and above. So this involves like a decision, right? What you do depends on some sort of condition. So how can you do something like this in Java? The homework code? Oh, you want me to go over the homework? Yeah, sure, we can do that. Okay. That is a good idea. I keep forgetting to do that. Okay. But yes, we can go over. Where is the... Why didn't I... Where's the description? Okay, whatever. I'll just open this up again and scroll to the end. I know I posted the description in Classroom though, but... Okay. So let me open a Java Online. Let me copy these two arrays. Okay. So let's call this array, let's see, this is an array of strings. Oh, it always gets weird when you copy quotation marks. Let me fix these. Okay, so this is an array of strings. So we're gonna have string, and then let's call this sentence equals good developers practice daily. And then we're gonna have int numbers equals this bunch of numbers, right? So we want to remove the shortest item in the first array. So hold on, I'm trying to remember if we did, okay. So let's go to the Java collections page and then we can look for, I don't remember if I went over for, I don't think I've gone over for loops yet, so we can't use that. Here, where's the Java collections? Go to, or here, Java array. There we go. As you can see here, there's a lot of methods. And so you can sort this. So what you want to do with this is you want to sort this and then remove the first index, because then that would remove the first item. Or no, the shortest item, sorry. Then you would want to sort it according to the length. Oh, that's harder actually. I know how to do it, but I don't think we went over that. Because you'd have to specify a different kind of comparator. Okay, so ignore the string one. Although I can go over how to do it if you want me to, but it would involve like doing something more complicated than we've already learned. So ignore that one for now, but we can sort the string, not the string, the integer array. So we go to our sort method. Where'd it go? Anyways, you can see that we have a lot of sort methods. So we're sorting integers. It doesn't really matter which one, but ascending numerical order, right? So we're going to do, we need to import java.util. And then we should be able to do arrays.sort numbers. And then if we print arrays after this, it should give us a sorted array. Oh, it gave us the object location again. That's annoying. Hold on. Let me get something to print it out properly. Okay, it is taking its time. Oh, oops, I printed sentence instead of numbers. My bad. Okay, but as you can see, right, this got sorted. So now we have 2, 4, 10, 45. So after this got sorted, then we know that the first item in this array is going to be the smallest one. Actually, we're removing the largest one in this one here. Let me just get rid of that because that's too complicated. So remove the largest value in the second array. So then you know the largest value is going to be the last number in this array, right? 45. So then you could just do numbers, you would want to remove it. So essentially, when you have an array, right, you have a set size, which means that like you can't actually like delete like the space. So you would still have an array of length 4. So you can't actually like, there isn't really like a good way to remove it. Sorry, I should have assigned a better homework. But there isn't actually really a good way to remove a method from the end, an item from the end of an array. I feel like this should have been an array list. But anyways, you would essentially remove the last item from the array. So you could just set it to like 0 or something by doing numbers, numbers.length -1. That would give you the last number, the last item in the array, right? And then you would set it equal to, I mean, typically the default when setting like null values is -1, or you could actually just set it to null. That would probably be the best way to do it. And then if you wanted to print it out again, you would, oops. Oh, it doesn't let you do that. I think it gets annoyed. But yeah, so just set it to -1. And that is the typical way people do things. Yeah, sorry, this is not a very good method. Anyway, the homework I have this time is, I think, better because I found a website that I think one of the previous instructors used to assign homework, and it's like it has much better problems, I think. Because I know these homeworks have been kind of confusing and like very vague. But anyways, making a hash table, right? So last time we talked about collections and like hash tables. So if you go here, where is the part where we did hash tables? Hash tables. Okay, so this is how we create a hash table, right? And so you put in these values and then you take out these values. So essentially you could just like do hash table, copy this essentially. So like hash table, these are integers and strings, right? So hash table, integer string, h equals new hash table, integer string. This creates your new hash table, and then you could just put in the values manually. I think there might be an easier way to do it if you wanted to just put in like, if you wanted to pair them like directly, but I think that's kind of beyond the scope of this class. So, but yeah, so then you would just put them in individually. So h dot put, let's put in numbers 0. Oh, hold on, I'm sorry. Yeah, so numbers 0 and then sentences 0. And then you would just do this for every item in the array. There's only 4 items, so. But yes, this looks, oops, why am I putting ones in them? Oh my God. But yes, this looks very annoying, as you can see, which is why what we're talking about today, which is code flow, is going to be very important. And it's going to make doing these kinds of things much, much easier and a lot less manual typing. Actually, this, what I'm using right now to print out the arrays is a form of code flow. This is a for loop. I talked about this a little bit last time, but we're going to talk about it more today. Yeah, you need parentheses at the end there. Don't forget that. That's pretty easy to forget. I forget them a lot. I think I need to import hash table also. Yeah, see, and you can see like these kinds of autocomplete things will show up so that you don't have to like remember the full name of things when you want to import things. Or is it annoying? I think it might be in a different place. Oh, it said hash table was there. Let me find it here. It might be in a different, might be under something else. But yeah, you can find a lot of information on these kinds of classes online. So where is it under? Java.util.dictionary. No, Java.util.hashtable. That should be a thing. Maybe it's lowercase. Where was my? Oh yeah, it's lowercase. What? I have sentences, right? Oh, sentence, singular. Okay, now you can see it's running. Oh wait, I just printed the whole thing again. Sorry, I did not print the hash table. I printed the old thing. Oh, that was last week's PowerPoint. Sorry, things have been a little hectic with moving. But anyways, print out the value corresponding to the key practice. So you want to get that key from your hash table, right? So if you look at these methods, you should find a get element, right? So get takes the object key and then returns the value. So you want to print out h.get and then practice, because that's your value, right? And then if you print that out, you should get the number at the end. Oh wait, let me get rid of these. Otherwise it's going to clutter up the print output. Yeah, sorry, this was kind of a long-winded homework. What? Oh, wait. Oh, the item from the first array is the key and the item from the second array is the value. I think I swapped things. My bad. This should be numbers. This should be string and then integer. But it would take too long to redo everything. So if I just did get like 3, that would return practice. But see, the point is you use keys to get the values and you don't use values to get the keys. And actually you can't have duplicate keys in a hash table is the main thing. What? Oh, wait. Hold on, no wonder. It's because let's take one of these random numbers that we have up here. Let's take 10. Oh, I'm missing a parentheses. Okay. And so you can see that when we put in 10, we get practice. Yeah, sorry, that was kind of a long-winded solution. This homework will be better. But yes, so basically keys have to be unique from each other. You can't have 2 of the same key. So if you tried to do h dot put, let's say 10, and then like something else like new word, right? And then you did the same thing again, it would essentially replace what's already in like 10 because you can't have more than one of the same key. So it would just replace what's there before. So as you can see here, it printed out practice here for h.get10, but then after you put something else in 10, then it prints out new word because now essentially practice just got booted out. So yeah, that's how that works. Any questions on that? I know that was really confusing. Sorry. That was a bad homework. I should have changed this one. But I didn't want to like go too far from like what was there before. So yeah, any more questions? Sorry, that was really confusing. Okay. And there are no more questions about the homework. I'm going to move on to this one. Oh yeah, but as you can see, we're using a new website for the homework, which is hopefully easier to understand. But anyways, so decision making in Java, right? In order to make a decision in Java, Java uses the following conditional statements. Use if to specify a block of code to be executed if a specified condition is true. So like you would say, if person is less than 12 years old, then give them a blue ball. Right? So if something, then the next block of code occurs. And then you would use else to specify a block of code to be executed if that condition is false. So essentially just think about this like as logic, right? Like if something, then do something. Otherwise, like if your previous condition isn't met, then do something else. And I'll show some examples to clarify this. Yeah, I can copy paste the code and send it. I'll do that at the, I'll post the solution to last week's homework after after this class, when I post the materials for this class. But yeah, next, use else if to specify a new condition to test if the first condition is false. So like you would say, if, like, let's say, if this animal is a cat, meow, right? And then you could say, else, if this animal is a dog, bark. And then you could say, else, if it's, which means that it's not a cat or a dog, then you could, I don't know, yell at it or just like say hi, I don't know. Anyways, use switch to specify many alternative blocks of code to be executed. So you can essentially, it's called a case switch statement. And so it's essentially like if you had a lot of ifs and if else's lined up next to each other. But yeah, it's kind of confusing. So I'll show you some examples, and hopefully when you see the example, you'll kind of understand how it works. So here's what an if statement looks like. So if parentheses, and then you put your condition within the parentheses. So I think you guys went over Boolean stuff in the first half of this class, right? Where you had like true and false. So you would say like if 5 is less than 7, then that would be like true, right? So like the code would execute if 5 is less than 7, but since 5 is always less than 7, it's always true. But you know, if you set a variable x and you said if x is less than 7, then whether or not the code executes depends on what you set x to, right? So you can either, if you have one line of code, you can just do if, condition, and then statements all in one line. But if you want to do more than one line inside your block, then you need to add these curly braces again. So remember that these curly braces are basically how we determine like a lot of things in Java, like the structure of your code is basically built with curly braces. So you would put all of your conditional statements inside these curly braces. And then last example, you can see if and then else. So the else only gets executed if the condition in the first if statement is false. So essentially one of these blocks or the other block gets executed, but not both. And then here you can see if and then else if, and then you can have as many else ifs as you want. And then you can also have an else at the end for anything you didn't catch in all your numerous else ifs. But the else ifs and the else's are all optional. But you can see that it always has to go in this order. So you have to start with an if and then an else if you want one, and then an else if you want one. But you can't like start a statement with an else if, because then it's like, what are you saying else to? You know? Like when you talk to like an actual person, right? You would say, oh, like, I don't know, if the vending machine has water, get me water. Otherwise, get me Coke. And if there's no Coke, then get me Pepsi or whatever, you know? But like you wouldn't say like, else if get me Coke. You would need to have like another if statement before that in order for that logic to make sense. So here's a little flowchart graph of how this works. This can be a useful way to visualize code, and sometimes like if you ever take like coding classes in the future, they might like ask you to draw a flowchart like this. So for reference, here's what like a code flowchart looks like. So you start at the top, right? You go down, you have your condition. If your condition's true, then you execute this code inside the body. And then if the condition's false, then you just skip past the entire thing inside that block and then just go to whatever's after the if statement. So here in this example, we have int x equals 20, int y equals 18, and if x is greater than y, system.out.println x is greater than y. So you can see that the condition is x is greater than y, and in this case, this condition is true because 20 is greater than 18. Because these are actually all of your conditions are going to be Boolean expressions. They're going to be either true or false. So if you guys don't remember, because this was several weeks ago, a Boolean expression is an expression that results in a Boolean value. That is, in a value of either true or false. And more complex Boolean expressions can be built out of simpler expressions using Boolean operators. So here are some descriptions of operators, right? We have the double equals. I think we went over this, like the difference between a double equals and a dot equals, right? So double equals returns true if they're equal. Exclamation mark equals is if they're not equal, less than or equal to, greater than, and then greater or equal to, right? Does everyone remember this? Any questions on these? Because you're not really going to understand the rest of code flow if you don't understand Booleans. Let me check what time is it real quick. So we're not running too far behind. Okay, cool. I think we're okay on time. So here are some more operators, right? So we have the double ampersand, which is an and, the double pipes. These like long vertical lines are called pipes. That's an or. Exclamation mark is a not, and then a caret is an exclusive or. So an exclusive or is essentially like dogs or cats, and you can only choose one or the other. You can't have both. So int x equals 4, int y equals 6, int z equals 0. And then you have your Boolean b. So e equals x is greater than y. So then what would b equal? You can just type it in the chat. Yep, that's false because 4 is not greater than 6. Okay, and then what about b is greater than y and y is greater than z? Oh, you can't type it privately? Dang. It's okay, you can type it in the general chat, that's fine. Although I hope you guys don't mind if you feel like self-conscious about it or whatever. But yeah, I don't have the ability to change that. So I'd have to ask Miss He to change that, but I'm not sure if she's here right now.
You have to turn into co-host or something.
Yeah, I'd have to be co-host, but she didn't make me co-host this time, I don't think. Yeah, just type it in the general chat. It's okay if you're wrong. I won't judge you. But yeah, the second one is also false. Because with the and, if one side is false, then the entire thing is false. And actually when the program, like when the compiler, like, or not the compiler, but like when the interpreter, I guess, looks at this code, right? When the computer is trying to run this code, if the first part of an and statement, like it looks at the x is greater than y first, right? And if that's false, it doesn't even check if y is greater than z because it's just faster because it knows that y, even if y, no matter what y is greater than z is equal to, the entire thing's going to be false. So it saves time by just like skipping the next part if the first part is false. But yeah, the third one is true because y, no, it isn't. Why? Oh yeah, the third one is true because x is less than y. So even though y is not less than z, since x is less than y, this thing works. And then the last one is, yeah, the last one is true also, because so you can see we have like this nested thing right here in parentheses. And obviously, if you learned anything from math in school, it's that you evaluate what's inside the parentheses first. So looking at what's inside the parentheses, we see x is greater than y is false, but y is greater than z is true. So all of this inside the parentheses becomes true. And then and x is greater than z is true. So then since both sides are true, the entire thing's true. Any questions on that? Okay, cool. So when an expression contains two or more operators, the order in which operations are done is defined by parentheses and by the precedence of operators. Thus, for example, the following two expressions are equivalent. So again, it's kind of like in math where you have like your order of operations or whatever, right? So you do whatever's in the parentheses first. And if there's no parentheses, you just go from like left to right, essentially. But I think there also is some sort of order of precedence when it comes to like and versus or. I think it does make a difference. I think and comes first in the order of operations, and then you do or. So in this case, it doesn't matter because the and is first anyways, but it would matter if it were behind. We can actually test that out, actually. Let's copy these. I'll open a new one so that I don't get rid of this one since you wanted me to post it. Oh, I need another parentheses. Hold on. I think I'm missing another one. Yeah, okay. There we go. Oh, I need to set X. Hold on. Oh, int X. Okay. As you can see, both of these return true. And so, however, if you like switch this order around, so you did like something like this, let's try. Let's move this to the end. Right, so if you did X is less than 100 or X equals to 300 and X is greater than 1. So theoretically, since X is less than 100, this thing should return true. But as you, maybe there is no order of operations for Java. I think it depends on the language. I might have gotten confused. Hold on. Okay, someone's yelling outside. We're going to ignore that. Okay, I think in this case, it does actually operate in order. So it does X is less than 100, and then that's true. And then it looks at this, and then X is greater than 1, and that is true. So then both sides of this get evaluated as true. So then this entire thing is true. So it kind of like, I guess, eats along this way. So X is less than 100 is true. So then this entire OR statement is true. So then it just considers this section to be true, and then it checks the AND. But if you add it in parentheses here, or not there, in the front, wait, no, that would still be true. Sorry, maybe this is, I need to come up with a better example. Oh yeah, it's true either way. Hold on. Wait, I need to think of a better example that will like actually be different depending on the value of X. Hold on. Okay, let's try that. Okay, yeah. So this returns true. X is less than 100. And then, so then this entire thing registers as true. And then it checks and X is greater than 1. But if you did this, if you evaluated the and first, then it would be different. What? Oh, wait, it's an or. Okay. Let's make this an and. Then that doesn't show the order of operations. I need a better example. I can't come up with one off the top of my head. I'll post one later on Classroom because I am not the kind of person who's good at coming up with examples off the top of my head. But point being, the order does matter, and like the type of operation you're using does matter, I'm pretty sure. So, wrong PowerPoint. Okay, yeah, I'll post some better examples later on Classroom. It's just been very hectic with moving. So, yeah, I can copy and paste it here. I'll copy and paste that to the chat since it's like very short. My computer is also kind of overheating right now. It's kind of dying. So hopefully Zoom doesn't crash, but if it does, then it's because my computer overheated. So here, let me, thing with Java is that it copies with annoying spacing. Okay, that should work. Oh wait, I didn't even, wait, hold on. I need to fix this condition that I put in. Sorry. Ignore that message. Use this one instead. I deleted some stuff and I forgot to put it back. Okay, here we go. Yeah, you can play around with Booleans until the cows come home. Yes, here are conditions, right, with the equals. If x equals y, print they're equal. And then you can do if x equals y, print they're equal, and else print x and y are not equal. We can also plug this in for a bit. I'll also paste this in the chat. Although you might have to fix the indentation on your own because indentation gets annoying. Having nicely indented code is not a requirement in Java, but it makes it easier to read. Like I said, it's the curly braces that really matter. So you can just have like really wacky indentation and it'll still work. But it's just really hard to read when things aren't indented correctly. So if you said int x equals 10, int y equals 10. Then you print out they're equal, and then afterwards you print out they are not equal. So as you can see, when they're different, it skips over this entire block, and then it moves on to the next block. It might be easier to see if you do it like this. And then here is a much longer thing. I'll copy paste this into the chat also. Kind of copied nicely. So as you can see, also with these curly braces, right? You can either do like ending brace and then start the next condition on the same line, or you can put it on the next line. I personally think it looks better this way, but some people prefer it this way. It depends on like personal preference, but either way will work. So if we paste this, we can see that our grade equals a C because we have a test score of 76. Unfortunate. Although in college, a test score of 76 could be an A. So don't give up hope. But anyways, as long as one condition is satisfied, the system will ignore the rest of the conditions in the same else if block. So as you can see in our example here, right? If test score is greater than or equal to 90, grade is equal to A. However, since this is not true, we move on to the next one. Check the next one. The next one is not true either. So then we check this one. Else if test score is greater than or equal to 70, we can see that this one is true. So then we set our grade is equal to C, right? And then after this, you can see that next one, if we move on to the next one, if test score is greater than 60, well, our test score of 76 is greater than 60. However, since we've already executed this block, we actually ignore everything else after that and move on to printing out. So that's why when you run this, you end up with a test score of a grade of C instead of a grade of F. Because if you just like kept going, then it would be like, oh yeah, test score is greater than 60, let's make it a D. And then, oh yeah, test score is greater, like there's no condition here, but like, oh yeah, it's like, anything. So then you make it an F. Like that's not how it works, right? Once you hit something that is true, then you ignore everything after it. So out of all of these blocks of code, only one of them will get executed. And after that one is executed, it jumps to what's after. So that's the important thing to remember about if statements, because it is possible to like accidentally like mess up an if statement by by doing things like the wrong way. So if you try to do, like if you swap this around, say, and you tried to say, if test score is greater than 60, then it's a D, right? If test score is greater than 70, then it's a C. If test score is greater than 80, it's a B. And if test score is greater than 90, then it's an A. And then otherwise it's an F, right? Like looking at this makes sense, right? Mentally, you're like, oh yeah, if it's greater than 60, it's a D. If it's greater than 70, it's a C, blah, blah, blah. This makes sense. But then when you run it, you're going to end up with a D. And so why is that? It's because the order in which you write your conditions matters. Because of this effect, because only one of them is going to happen. So it looks at this, 76 is greater than 60, so then it's like, all right, your grade's a D, and then it doesn't look at anything else afterwards. So then it just jumps to printing. So that's why when you write like these kinds of if statements like this, you need to be careful about what order you put your conditions in. Because essentially none of this will matter because everything above 60 is automatically above 70 or 80 or 90. So you need to make sure that your conditions are essentially, they don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive, although it would be good if they were. But essentially just make sure that your previous conditions do not obliterate all your other conditions. Does that make sense? On why you can do things in one order but not in the other order? Okay, cool. Moving on. So there's also a shorthand if else called the ternary operator because it consists of 3 operands. It can be used to replace multiple lines of code with a single line. And it's mostly used for just very simple if else statements. So if you have your variable equals condition, question mark, expression true, and then expression false. So again, this can be kind of confusing, but here's an example. I'll paste this into the chat. So we paste this here, right? Oops. Okay, so int grade equals 8. String result. So grade is less than 9 is your operator. Then you have your question mark. And then this is what it's going to return if it's true. And then this is what it's going to return if it's false. All right, let me just double check. Yeah. So it's basically like an if else statement, but like condensed into one line. And so essentially this is the value that your string result is going to get assigned. So if you run this, you can see that variable grade is already defined, right? Let's make it grade 2. So you can see that I print out ES or MS because grade 2 is less than 9. So essentially, this is just a very condensed form of an if-else statement, and this just looks better in code because it takes up less space. How do you specify ES or MS after that? Good question. So essentially, you can nest even more inside of these. So let's say this, right? Grade 2 is less than 9, then ES or MS. Instead of doing this, you can put in another pair of parentheses, and you can put in another ternary operator inside the ternary operator. So you would do, oops, here we go. So then you would do grade 2 is less than 7, right? I mean, I guess it depends on what county you're in, but in Fairfax County, elementary school is 1 through 6, and middle school is 7 and 8. So grade 2 is less than 7 is your condition in here, and then if that's true, then you're in ES, and else you're in MS. So if you made this, well, we can keep it as 8. Did I miss something? I think I'm missing a parenthesis somewhere. Or maybe I put an extra parentheses. There we go. So as you can see, this printed out MS, right? So what it's doing is it looks grade 2 is less than 9. Okay, so then it goes and looks at this, which is what it looks at if it's true, right? And so here we have another ternary operator. And so grade 2 is less than 7, that's not true. So then it looks at the next one, which is MS. So essentially, like essentially your false is the else statement, right? When you're doing like an if else statement, right? Like if X is greater than 7, do something, and then else do something, right? Essentially, the else gets executed if it's false, if your condition is false. So essentially, your else would be like your HS. Does that make sense? Like if you made this 11. Because this condition is not true, so then it just looks at the false, which is this. So this is essentially the else. Because like you could even give it like a ridiculous number that is not a grade level, and it would give you HS. Yeah, it would still be high school because it's an else, right? It essentially catches everything that isn't less than 9. So yeah, does that make sense? Any other questions on this? Okay, cool. Moving on, because we do not have that much time left. Oh, actually, we just have some exercises and the quiz. And then I wanted to go over like the new homework website in case any of you had any questions on it. But here's an exercise. Double rand 1 equals math.random. Essentially, there's random numbers, right? And so if the first one is the smallest number, print out the sum of them. If the first one is the largest, print out the difference between rand 1 and rand 3. And if the second is the largest, print out the difference between rand 2 and rand 1. Here, let me copy this in the chat. Actually, let's just make this part of the homework. I think that's just easier. Unless someone wants me to go over this right now. Because I don't have time to let you guys work on it by yourselves before I explain it, because I would give you at least 5 minutes to work on this. But we don't have that much time. So should I show this to you now or make this homework? Okay, homework. Cool. Okay, quick quiz question. So what is the output after executing the following code? Yeah, it's X. Nice job. So essentially, right, it looks at the first one. A is less than B, so it prints X, and then it ignores everything else. So even though B is greater than 5, it doesn't care because it already looked at the first condition and the first condition was true. So yeah, so homework. So another one of the teachers used this for Java like last session. So it's this website called Coding Bat, and it has a bunch of exercises on here. So these are the ones that I recommend. You can do some other ones too if you want. There's a lot on here, but this is the logic section. There's also a logic 2 if you wanna. Oops. So like, let me click on a random one. So right, so this is a Java method. We haven't really talked too much about methods, but essentially this is like an integer A and an integer B that they give you, right? And so it doesn't, you don't set A and B in this, but given two integers, A and B return their sum. However, teen values in the range 13 to 19 inclusive are extra lucky. So if either value is a teen, just return 19. So let me just do this really quick to demonstrate. So you would do, if either value is a teen, just return 19. So if A is greater than 13 and A is less than 19, then put that in some parentheses, or B is greater than 13 and B is less than 19. Oh, it's inclusive. It should be greater than or equal to. Oh wow, my computer's really overheating. Okay, good thing class is ending soon so that my computer can calm down. But if this is the case, you just return 19. We haven't really talked about methods and like the return thing, but essentially like return just like is like returning like the answer, right? And then you would do return A plus B. So in this situation, right, if one of these numbers is between 13 and 19, oh, okay. If one of these numbers is between 13 and 19, then it returns 19, and then else it returns A plus B. And so if you hit go, then it essentially tests it for you and it puts in a bunch of numbers for A and B, and it makes sure you have like the correct answer. So does this make sense? We haven't gone over like the whole like returning thing before. So I don't want to like confuse you guys. So if like this doesn't make sense to you, then you can just stick with this homework. But Coding Bat is like a pretty cool website that has a lot of other things that you can try if you think these are too easy, or if you want to review some older concepts also, because they have more than just, I mean, they have logic 2, which has some harder puzzles. And then they also have some, you know, warm-up problems, string problems, array problems. So yeah, this is a pretty cool website if you want to get in more coding practice. But yeah, any questions on the homework? Like, does this make sense? I'll post a screenshot of this as like an example in case you forget how the whole return thing works. But yeah, if there are no further questions, then that's it for this class. And then after that, we just have one class left. And then you will be able to move on to the wide world of Java 2.